15 haunted celebrity mansions Hollywood never wanted you to see. Behind the glamorous facades of Hollywood's most luxurious homes, something darker lingers. Not just memories, but presences. Unseen energies that refuse to leave, trapped in the spaces where tragedy struck or where fame wasn't enough to bring peace. These aren't just stories told around campfires. These are documented accounts from owners, staff, and visitors who entered these celebrity mansions expecting luxury, but instead encountered the unexplainable. Cold spots where no draft exists, voices whispering in empty rooms, and figures that vanish when approached. What makes these Hollywood hauntings particularly chilling isn't just the paranormal activity itself, but how it connects to the very real tragedies, murders, and mysteries that played out within these walls. The most disturbing incidents have occurred in homes where violent deaths left their mark, not just in Hollywood legend, but apparently in the very fabric of the buildings themselves. From the bloody site of the Manson family's most notorious killings, to the glamorous estate where Hollywood royalty still refuses to leave, these mansions hold secrets that real estate agents desperately try to hide and that new owners discover only after it's too late. Some celebrities have fled these homes within months of purchasing them. Others have called in exorcists, paranormal investigators, and spiritual healers, often to no avail. The entities that haunt Hollywood's darkest addresses seem determined to ensure their stories aren't forgotten, no matter how many renovations or how much sage is burned to cleanse these spaces. Tonight, we're taking you inside the 15 most haunted celebrity mansions that Hollywood has tried desperately to keep hidden from public view. These aren't just houses. They're portals to tragedies that refuse to end, starring ghosts who once saw their names in lights. Let's begin with perhaps the most infamous address in Hollywood history, a place where the walls themselves seem to remember one of the entertainment industry's darkest nights.
I'm Dennis Hurst, and I was the last person to leave 10050 Cielo Drive.
1. The Beverly Hills Murder Mansion, 10,050 Cielo Drive. Perched high in the Benedict Canyon area of Beverly Hills, the house at 10,050 Cielo Drive should have been nothing more than another luxury home with breathtaking views of Los Angeles. Instead, it became the site of a slaughter so brutal that its address became synonymous with horror, the place where pregnant actress Sharon Tate and 4 others were murdered by members of the Manson family on August 9, 1969. The Spanish-style mansion, built in 1942, had a glamorous history before the killings. It was once home to celebrities including Candice Bergen and music producer Terry Melcher, whose previous residence there may have been why Charles Manson targeted the address. But after the murders, the property took on a much darker energy. For years afterward, security guards and caretakers reported hearing inexplicable sounds, muffled screams, whispered pleas for help, and sobbing that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Visitors consistently described an overwhelming sense of dread upon entering, with many refusing to stay after nightfall. People say the house never forgot the blood, revealed a security guard who worked at the property in the 1970s. I've watched tough guys, big men who weren't afraid of anything, refuse to enter certain rooms. They couldn't explain why, just that something felt wrong. The most commonly reported phenomenon was the appearance of a pregnant woman in a nightgown, believed to be Tate herself, standing at the windows or at the spot where her body was discovered. One caretaker claimed to have seen her repeatedly over a 3-month period, always with the same expression of confusion and terror on her face. The mansion stood until 1994, when owner Alvin Weintraub demolished it and built a new home with a different address, 10,066 Cielo Drive, in an attempt to erase the property's grim associations. But changing the physical structure didn't seem to cleanse the land. New residents still reported cold spots, unexplained noises, and a persistent feeling of being watched. They cleaned the floors, but the air still screams, said a former housekeeper who worked at the new mansion. You can feel it when you enter certain areas, like walking through invisible cobwebs that stick to your skin. Something wants you to know what happened there. The property has changed hands multiple times since the rebuilding, with some owners staying just months before selling. Real estate agents now typically avoid mentioning the location's history, but the paranormal activity has made maintaining that silence increasingly difficult.
Members Charlie wasn't happy with the way the murders went down the night before, roughly
2. The La Bianca House, 3301 Waverly Drive. Just one night after the Tate murders, The Manson family struck again at 3301 Waverly Drive in Los Feliz, killing grocer Lino LaBianca and his wife Rosemary in an equally brutal attack. Unlike the Cielo Drive property, this house still stands today, its unassuming exterior giving little hint of the horrors it witnessed. The LaBianca house has changed owners numerous times since the murders, but many have reported similar disturbing experiences. Cold spots move through the home, particularly in the living room where Leno was killed and the bedroom where Rosemary met her end. Residents describe the sensation as walking through invisible ice water that appears even on the hottest summer days. More disturbingly, multiple owners have reported seeing shadow figures standing at the foot of their beds or in doorways, dark silhouettes that disappear when directly approached but reappear in peripheral vision. These manifestations are often accompanied by whispered conversations that stop abruptly when someone enters a room. "It feels like the walls are watching you," explained a former owner who lasted just 7 months before selling at a loss. "We'd hear footsteps upstairs when nobody was there. Our dog refused to enter certain rooms. And sometimes, in the middle of the night, we'd wake up to the sound of someone writing on the walls, just like the killers did with their victims' blood." Perhaps most disturbing are reports of phantom smells that periodically fill the house. The metallic scent of blood, followed by a sickly sweet aroma that paranormal investigators have described as the smell of death. These odors appear suddenly, often focused in specific areas, before dissipating just as quickly. The house's haunted reputation has made it difficult to sell, despite its prime location. Real estate listings carefully avoid mentioning its history, but prospective buyers often research the address and back out when they discover its dark past. Those who do purchase often do so at significantly below market value, seeing it as an investment opportunity, only to find themselves listing it again within a year or two. "Some houses absorb tragedy," noted a paranormal researcher who has studied the property. "The LaBianca house doesn't just remember what happened there, it seems to replay it over and over, as though the energy of that night is caught in a loop that never resolves."
Who opened United Artists Studio along with Charlie Chaplin, lived at Pickfair here.
Third, the Pickfair Estate, Beverly Hills. Once considered the crown jewel of Hollywood real estate, Pickfair was the 56-acre estate shared by silent film stars Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks, Hollywood's original royal couple. Built in 1919, the mansion became the center of Hollywood's social life, hosting everyone from Albert Einstein and Amelia Earhart to F. Scott Fitzgerald and the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. After Pickford's death in 1979, the mansion changed hands several times before being purchased by businessman Meshulam Riklis and his wife, actress Pia Zadora, in 1988. What happened next remains controversial. Zadora had the historic mansion largely demolished, claiming it was infested with termites. Many preservationists believe the real reason was far more disturbing. The house was haunted, genuinely, frighteningly haunted, Zadora later revealed. "We tried to live with it. We'd hear footsteps when no one was there. Doors would slam by themselves. The staff would quit because of things they'd seen." According to Zadora and household staff, the primary entity was a woman in a flowing white dress, believed to be Mary Pickford herself, who would appear on the main staircase or in the bedroom that had once been hers. The apparition seemed particularly active when changes were being made to the house, almost as though protesting alterations to her beloved home. Other reported phenomena included phantom sounds of 1920s music and laughter, as though ghostly parties were still taking place. Staff members described hearing the clinking of glasses and multiple conversations, only to find rooms completely empty when they investigated. "She didn't want to be forgotten, and she isn't," said a groundskeeper who worked at Pickfair during Zadora's ownership. "Miss Pickford built that house at the height of her fame. It was everything to her. I don't think she ever intended to leave it, even after death." The decision to demolish Pickfair sparked outrage in Hollywood preservation circles, but Zadora maintained that the haunting had made the house unlivable. Curiously, even after the original structure was largely replaced, paranormal activity reportedly continued on the property, suggesting that whatever presence remained was attached to the land itself rather than just the building. The mansion that stands today bears little resemblance to the original Pickfair, but visitors still report unexplained cold spots, the faint smell of Mary Pickford's signature rose perfume, and occasional glimpses of a woman in white appearing and disappearing in mirrored surfaces. 4. The Harry Houdini Estate, 2400 Laurel Canyon Boulevard. The legendary magician and escape artist Harry Houdini purchased this Laurel Canyon estate in 1919, transforming it into a mysterious wonderland complete with secret passages, hidden rooms, and a deep water tank where he practiced his underwater escapes. Though Houdini didn't die here, he passed away in Detroit in 1926, his spirit seems to have returned to the place he loved most. After Houdini's death, his grief-stricken widow Bess held annual seances at the estate every Halloween for 10 years, attempting to contact her husband beyond the grave. Though she never received the prearranged coded message they had agreed would prove his spirit's authenticity, many believe these repeated attempts to pierce the veil between worlds may have created a permanent paranormal portal on the property. Subsequent owners have reported bizarre occurrences that seem connected to Houdini's obsession with illusion and escape. Locked doors inexplicably open. Objects disappear from one room only to reappear in another. Water faucets turn on by themselves, particularly significant given Houdini's death from peritonitis after a ruptured appendix. He escaped every lock, except this one, remarked a paranormal investigator who conducted research at the property. The phenomena we documented suggests an intelligence that wants to demonstrate mastery over physical objects, exactly what Houdini dedicated his life to proving he could do. The most compelling evidence came during a seance conducted by a renowned medium in 2013. During the session, recording equipment captured unexplained voices, including one that seemed to say, "Bess, I'm waiting," a possible reference to Houdini's wife and their failed attempts to communicate after his death. Caretakers report that paranormal activity intensifies around Halloween, the anniversary of Houdini's death, with some claiming to have seen a full-bodied apparition of a man in early 20th century formal wear standing near the property's pool. The figure never interacts with observers and vanishes when approached. Despite its haunted reputation, or perhaps because of it, the Houdini estate has become a sought-after location for film shoots, music videos, and private events. Those who rent the space are typically warned about its paranormal history, with many reporting their own unexplainable experiences during their time there. "Something lingers in that house," said a location scout who has worked on multiple productions at the estate. "Equipment malfunctions for no reason. Batteries drain instantly. And everyone, literally everyone, feels like they're being watched, especially in the areas where Houdini reportedly spent the most time."
A new opportunity and new security for the middle class.
Oh Lord, my God, have you forsaken us?
5. Nicolas Cage's LaLaurie Mansion, New Orleans. While most haunted Hollywood mansions are located in California, one of the most notorious is actually in New Orleans' French Quarter. The LaLaurie Mansion, built in 1832, was the site of horrific atrocities perpetrated by socialite Delphine LaLaurie, who tortured and killed numerous enslaved people in a hidden chamber discovered only after a fire in 1834. In 2007, actor Nicolas Cage, known for his interest in the occult and supernatural, purchased this infamous property for $3.45 million. What's remarkable is how quickly Cage, who had previously owned several allegedly haunted properties, fled from this one. He sold the mansion within a few years, reportedly after spending very little time actually living there. Though Cage has never publicly commented on why he abandoned the property so quickly, local tour guides and neighbors report that the paranormal activity in the mansion is among the most disturbing in America. Visitors and workers describe hearing chains rattling in the walls, blood-curdling screams emerging from empty rooms, and seeing full-bodied apparitions of injured people appearing and disappearing. Even Cage couldn't handle the chaos inside, claimed a local paranormal tour guide. The energy in that house isn't just residual haunting, it's active and seemingly intelligent. Workers reported tools disappearing, personal items moving overnight, and feeling invisible hands touching them while they worked on renovations. The mansion's dark history makes its haunting particularly disturbing. After the 1834 fire, responders discovered a hidden chamber where LaLaurie had imprisoned enslaved people, subjecting them to medical experiments and torture. The victims' spirits are believed to remain trapped in the mansion, with paranormal investigators recording EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, that include pleas for help and screams. Perhaps most disturbing are reports of phantom smells, the scent of burning flesh and decay that suddenly fills rooms before disappearing. Multiple owners have reported being awoken by the sensation of not being able to breathe, as though experiencing the suffocation of fire victims. While Cage's ownership was brief, It added another layer to the mansion's legend. Staff working on renovations during his ownership reported seeing a man in period clothing watching them from empty rooms, objects moving by themselves, and hearing whispered conversations in French, the language spoken by LaLaurie and her victims. Today, the LaLaurie mansion remains a private residence, though it attracts ghost hunters and tourists who photograph its exterior and report feeling overwhelming dread and nausea even when simply standing outside on the sidewalk.
Call him a cat burglar. You know how the newspapers like to build those things up.
I wonder if your mother would like a little dog.
Heck, what you...
6. The Ozzie and Harriet Nelson House, 1822 Camino Palmero Street. For millions of Americans in the 1950s and 60s, the adventures of Ozzie and Harriet represented the ideal wholesome family. The sitcom starred the real-life Nelson family in a heavily sanitized version of their lives, with much of it filmed in their actual Hollywood Hills home. But behind the perfect family image lay darker realities, and apparently spirits that refused to leave. After Ozzie Nelson's death in 1975, the house changed hands multiple times. New owners consistently reported paranormal phenomena centered around Ozzie's former master bedroom and office. The most common manifestation is the sound of Ozzie's typewriter clacking late at night, though no such machine exists in the house anymore. TV's perfect family, still performing for no one, said a former owner who lived in the house during the 1990s. We'd hear Harriet's voice humming in the kitchen. We'd smell Ozzie's pipe tobacco in his office when no one smoked. And sometimes, just sometimes, we'd catch glimpses of them both, going about their business as though we were the ghosts, not them. Later owners reported seeing the ghost of Harriet Nelson pacing in the master bedroom at night, seemingly agitated and searching for something. The apparition would walk a precise path, from the bed to the window, then to the closet, then back again, repeating the pattern for hours before fading away. The most disturbing phenomena involved the sensation of being watched during private family moments. Several owners described feeling as though invisible presences were sitting at their dinner table or gathering in their living room during holiday celebrations, as though the Nelsons were still playing their roles as the perfect family, watching and judging their successors. "There's a heaviness in that house," reported a paranormal investigator who conducted research there in 2010, "not necessarily threatening, but persistent. Our equipment recorded dramatic temperature drops of 15 to 20 degrees in certain rooms with no explanation, and multiple team members captured orbs and mist in photographs that couldn't be explained by natural causes." Adding to the property's eerie reputation are reports that doors throughout the house open on their own, particularly during family arguments, almost as though the Nelsons are trying to maintain the perfect, conflict-free home they portrayed on television but perhaps never truly had in real life. 7. The George Reeves Home, 1579 Benedict Canyon Drive. The mysterious death of George Reeves, the actor who portrayed Superman in the 1950s television series, remains one of Hollywood's most persistent mysteries. Found dead from a gunshot wound in his Benedict Canyon home on June 16, 1959, his death was officially ruled a though many believe he was murdered. Whatever the truth behind his death, something strange remains in the home where Reeves spent his final moments. Subsequent owners have reported a persistent cold spot at the foot of the stairs, exactly where Reeves's body was discovered. This area remains noticeably colder than the rest of the house, regardless of heating or cooling systems. More dramatically, multiple residents have reported seeing a tall man in a Superman costume standing in mirrors, visible only in the reflection, not in the room itself. When the observer turns to look, the figure vanishes, only to reappear when they look back at the mirror. "The Man of Steel never really left," claimed a tenant who rented the house in the 1980s. "We'd hear footsteps upstairs when no one was there, heavy, masculine footsteps, and sometimes, in the middle of the night, we'd hear a single gunshot that would wake the entire household. But nothing was ever disturbed." The bedroom where Reeves died reportedly feels perpetually cold, with house guests refusing to sleep there after experiencing the sensation of someone sitting on the edge of the bed in the middle of the night. Several visitors have reported waking to find a man in a smoking jacket, Reeves's reported attire on the night of his death, standing at the foot of the bed, only to vanish when directly addressed. Perhaps most disturbing are the reports of phantom bloodstains appearing on the bedroom carpet, in exactly the spot where Reeves's body was found, that disappear when approached. Cleaning crews have repeatedly scrubbed these stains only to have them reappear days or weeks later. The paranormal activity seems to intensify around the anniversary of Reeves's death in June, with even skeptical visitors reporting unexplained phenomena during this period. Several paranormal investigation teams have recorded EVPs in the bedroom, including what sounds like a man saying, "This isn't what happened," and "Look closer," potentially supporting theories that Reeves's death wasn't suicide, but murder.
You're like a baby.
8. The Marilyn Monroe Brentwood home, 12,305 5th Helena Drive. The modest hacienda, where Hollywood's most iconic blonde bombshell spent her final days and died under mysterious circumstances in 1962, doesn't look like a haunted mansion. Its unassuming exterior gives little hint of the tragedy that occurred inside or the restless spirit that many believe still lingers there. Marilyn Monroe purchased the Brentwood property just months before her death, the first home she had ever owned herself. She was found dead in her bedroom on August 5, 1962, from what was ruled a probable suicide by barbiturate overdose, though conspiracy theories about her death persist to this day. Subsequent owners have reported consistent paranormal phenomena centered around Monroe's former bedroom and bathroom. The most commonly reported manifestation is seeing Monroe's reflection in mirrors and windows, a pale blonde woman in a white robe who vanishes when directly looked at. "She still wants to be seen," remarked a housekeeper who worked at the property in the 1990s. "I'd be cleaning, and suddenly I'd feel cold, even on the hottest days. Then I'd see her reflection in windows or mirrors, just for a second, but clear as day. Always looking sad, always looking lost." Multiple residents have reported lights and electronics turning on and off at exactly 3 a.m., the estimated time of Monroe's death. This phenomenon occurs so regularly that some owners simply began unplugging devices before bedtime to avoid the nightly disruption. Visitors to the home frequently report overwhelming emotions that seem disconnected from their own feelings, sudden waves of profound sadness or anxiety that lift as soon as they leave the property. Psychics who have visited believe these are emotional imprints left by Monroe in her final troubled days. Perhaps most compelling are the phantom smells that periodically fill the house. Monroe's signature Chanel No. 5 perfume appearing in rooms that have been empty for hours, or the medicinal scent of chloral hydrate, one of the substances found in her system after death. The bedroom where Monroe died reportedly feels perpetually cold, with house guests describing the sensation of being watched while trying to sleep there. Some report waking to find a blonde woman sitting at the vanity, brushing her hair, only to vanish when addressed. Despite multiple renovations and changes to the property over the decades, the paranormal activity has persisted, suggesting that whatever energy remains is connected to the land itself rather than the specific structures. Monroe's presence seems particularly active during times of change or renovation, almost as though she's curious about alterations to her first and only real home. 9. The Valentino Mansion, Falcon Lair, 1436 Bella Drive, silent film heartthrob. Rudolph Valentino purchased this Benedict Canyon estate in 1925, naming it Falcon Lair, after his unproduced film, The Hooded Falcon. Though he owned the property for just a year before his untimely death at age 31, Valentino's spirit seems to have formed a powerful attachment to the mansion that represented the pinnacle of his success. Subsequent owners and staff have reported numerous encounters with what they believe to be Valentino's ghost, typically described as a dark-haired man in 1920s attire who appears briefly before vanishing. The apparition is most commonly seen on the staircase or in Valentino's former bedroom. "Hollywood's original sex symbol, still lurking in the shadows," said a caretaker who worked at the property in the 1970s. "I'd see him standing at the top of the stairs, just watching, never threatening, never approaching, just observing, as though making sure his home was being properly maintained." Even more frequently reported is the ghost of Valentino's beloved Doberman Pinscher, whose phantom footsteps can be heard clicking across hardwood floors, followed by the sensation of an invisible dog brushing against visitors' legs. Some have reported feeling a cold, wet nose touch their hand when no animal is present. The sounds of 1920s music and laughter have been reported emanating from empty rooms, particularly during the evening hours. Staff working overnight shifts have described hearing what sounds like a party in progress, glasses clinking, multiple voices in conversation, and the distinct sound of tango music, Valentino's favorite dance, only to find all rooms empty upon investigation. Interestingly, female visitors to the property report more frequent paranormal experiences than males, with some describing the sensation of an unseen presence standing very close to them, accompanied by a cologne scent typical of the 1920s era. Several women have reported feeling a gentle caress on their cheek or hand when alone in certain rooms. Though the original mansion was largely demolished in 1953, with only the garage and some peripheral structures remaining, paranormal activity continued in the new building erected on the site. This suggests that Valentino's attachment is to the property itself, rather than the specific structure he inhabited. Some stars burn so brightly that they leave an imprint even after they're gone, noted a paranormal investigator who studied the property. Valentino's sudden death at the height of fame seems to have created exactly that kind of energy, a spirit that refuses to acknowledge its time has passed.
The coach from Count Dracula?
10. Bela Lugosi's apartment, 5620 Harold Way. The man who defined Count Dracula for generations lived in a surprisingly modest apartment building in Hollywood during his later years. After his death in 1956, Bela Lugosi was even buried in his Dracula cape at his request, perhaps an indication of how thoroughly he had internalized his most famous role. Based on reports from subsequent tenants, it seems Lugosi's spirit might have maintained that same identification even after death. Residents who have lived in Lugosi's former apartment consistently report similar phenomena. The strong smell of pipe tobacco — Lugosi was an avid pipe smoker — appearing suddenly in rooms, the sensation of a tall figure standing in doorways watching them, and dramatic temperature drops that occur without explanation. "Some rolls you don't leave behind," remarked a tenant who lived in the apartment during the 1980s. "I'd wake up in the middle of the night feeling like someone was in the room with me. I'd see a tall, thin silhouette standing in the doorway, just watching. When I turned on the light, no one was there, but the room would be ice cold and smell like old-fashioned tobacco." Multiple residents have reported seeing a caped figure in their peripheral vision that vanishes when directly looked at. The apparition is most frequently spotted near windows, as though looking out at the city, or standing at the foot of beds during the night. Perhaps most unsettling are reports of a deep, Hungarian-accented voice occasionally heard whispering in empty rooms. Several tenants have reported hearing the same phrase, "I am Dracula," Lugosi's famous line, spoken softly as though from just behind them when they are alone in the apartment. Electronic disturbances are common, with lights flickering without explanation, and television sets turning on to static in the middle of the night. Some residents believe these phenomena represent Lugosi's frustration with how his career ended, typecast, and unable to escape the vampire role that both made and limited him. The building's management has typically downplayed the paranormal reputation of Lugosi's former apartment, though they've had difficulty maintaining long-term tenants in the unit. Residents frequently break leases within months of moving in, citing personal reasons that they seem reluctant to elaborate on. "Living there, you get the sense of someone who doesn't realize they've died," said a former tenant. "It feels like Lugosi is still going through his daily routines, still smoking his pipe, still practicing his lines, completely unaware that he's sharing the space with the living."
This is the bar, the piano-shaped bar off
11. The Liberace Mansion, 4982, Shirley Street, Las Vegas. Though not in Hollywood proper, no list of haunted celebrity mansions would be complete without the Las Vegas estate where flamboyant entertainer Liberace lived until his death from AIDS complications in 1987. The pianist, known for his elaborate costumes, candelabras, and over-the-top performances, seems to have maintained his flair for the dramatic even after death. Subsequent owners and visitors have reported hearing phantom piano music late at night, complex, virtuosic passages that sound exactly like Liberace's distinctive style. The music typically comes from the room that housed his prized mirrored Baldwin grand piano, even after the instrument was removed from the property. "The show's not over," said a security guard who worked at the mansion when it was being used as an event space. "I'd be doing my rounds at 2 or 3 in the morning and hear piano music, crystal clear, complicated classical pieces with that show business flourish he was known for. I'd check the room, and of course no one was there. But as soon as I'd leave, the music would start again." More visually striking are reports of a glowing figure in sequined clothing seen moving through the mansion's hallways or standing at windows looking out at the property's fountains. The apparition is typically described as surrounded by a soft, golden light, before it fades from view. Paranormal investigators who have studied the property have documented unexplainable cold spots throughout the mansion, particularly in Liberace's former bedroom and the bathroom where he reportedly spent his final days. These areas register temperature drops of 15 to 20 degrees compared to surrounding spaces, with no structural explanation for the difference. Electronic equipment frequently malfunctions in the mansion, with recording devices capturing unusual interference and batteries draining inexplicably fast. Several investigation teams have recorded EVPs that sound like a man humming or laughing softly. Sounds consistent with Liberace's known mannerisms. Perhaps most in keeping with Liberace's personality are the reports of phantom smells, expensive cologne, candle wax, and champagne that appear suddenly in various rooms before dissipating. These scents often coincide with temperature drops and the sensation of someone moving nearby when no one is present. He loved being the center of attention in life, noted a psychic who visited the mansion. Why would death change that? The energy in that house isn't sad or angry. It's performative. It feels like he's still entertaining, still wanting to dazzle anyone who enters his space. 12. The Paul Byrne House, 9820 Easton Drive. The Spanish-style mansion where MGM producer Paul Byrne lived and died under mysterious circumstances just 2 months after marrying platinum blonde bombshell Jean Harlow in 1932, has hosted a steady stream of tragedies and paranormal activity in the decades since. Byrne's death was officially ruled after he was found naked with a gunshot wound to the head and a note that read, "Dearest dear, unfortunately this is the only way to make good the frightful wrong I have done you and to wipe out my abject humiliation." However, many believed he was murdered, possibly by his ex-common-law wife who killed herself 2 days later. Whatever the truth, the house seems to have retained the violent energy of that night. Subsequent owners have reported hearing a gunshot at 3 a.m., the approximate time of Byrne's death, followed by footsteps and the sound of a body falling. "Someone wants their version of the story told," claimed a resident who lived in the house during the 1970s. "The activity always seems centered around the bedroom where Byrne died. We'd feel sudden blasts of cold air, hear whispering voices arguing, and sometimes find objects moved overnight, particularly anything placed on the nightstand where Byrne supposedly left his note." The bedroom where Byrne died reportedly feels perpetually cold and uncomfortable, with guests describing the sensation of invisible hands touching them while they try to sleep. Many report waking to see a man in 1930s style pajamas standing at the foot of the bed, staring intently before vanishing. Adding to the house's dark legacy are 2 subsequent deaths. Comedian Jay Sebring, who owned the house in the 1960s, was murdered alongside Sharon Tate at Cielo Drive by the Manson family in 1969. Another owner reportedly drowned in the pool in the 1970s. These accumulated tragedies seem to have created a property with multiple hauntings. Visitors report seeing different apparitions, Byrne's ghost in the bedroom and hallway, a female figure believed to be Jean Harlow on the staircase, and a man in 1960s clothing thought to be Sebring near the pool area. Paranormal investigations at the property have recorded numerous EVPs, including what sounds like a man saying, "I didn't do this to myself" in the bedroom, and a woman crying on the staircase. Temperature fluctuations of 15 to 20 degrees have been documented with no natural explanation. "There's a heaviness in that house that never lifts," said a former caretaker. "Even on bright, sunny days, it feels like there's a shadow hanging over everything. It's as though the walls have absorbed all the pain and confusion of that night in 1932, and they're still trying to tell us what really happened." 13. The Griffith Park Curse Mansion, Los Feliz Murder House, 2475 Glendower Place. On the morning of December 6, 1959, Dr. Harold Perelson, a prominent physician, bludgeoned his sleeping wife to death with a hammer, severely injured his teenage daughter, who managed to escape, and then killed himself by drinking acid. The most chilling detail, after the attack, but before his Perelson calmly sat down in his living room and began reading a magazine. This horrific crime created one of Los Angeles's most notoriously haunted mansions, a sprawling Spanish Revival home that sat virtually untouched for decades afterward. The subsequent owners, the Enriquez family, purchased the property a year after the murders, but never moved in, using it only for storage until their own deaths. The result was a time capsule of horror, a mansion where 1950s furniture, decorations, and even wrapped Christmas presents remained in place for over 50 years, gathering dust while the house's dark reputation grew. It was never just a murder. It was a haunting that never stopped, said a neighbor who has lived across the street since the 1970s. You'd see lights moving inside when no one was there. You'd hear voices and crashes when the place was completely empty. People who dared to peek through the windows said it looked like a scene frozen in time, like the family might walk back in any moment. The few people who gained access to the property over the decades reported consistent paranormal phenomena. The overwhelming smell of rotting flowers, dramatic temperature drops, and the sound of a man muttering to himself. Words that sounded like "no more," repeated over and over. More dramatically, multiple trespassers reported seeing a man in pajamas standing at the top of the stairs, staring down with an expression of confused anger before vanishing. Others claimed to see a woman's body lying in the master bedroom, only to disappear when they looked directly at it. The house's locked, preserved state fed into its mystique, with urban explorers and ghost hunters attempting to access the property despite its private ownership. Those who succeeded often fled quickly, describing an atmosphere of such oppressive dread that they felt physically ill. I've investigated dozens of reportedly haunted locations, said a paranormal researcher who gained legal access in 2009. Nothing has ever affected me like that house. It felt like walking into a freezer, not just physically cold, but emotionally cold, like all hope and happiness had been sucked out of the air. Our equipment malfunctioned, batteries drained instantly, and every team member reported feeling watched by something hostile. After decades of sitting empty, the house was finally sold in 2016 and has undergone renovations. However, construction workers reported numerous unexplainable incidents. Tools disappearing only to reappear in different locations, the sound of footsteps following them between rooms, and the persistent feeling of being watched from the top of the stairs. 14. The Madonna Inn's Haunted Room, 100 Madonna Road, San Luis Obispo. While primarily known for its wildly flamboyant themed rooms and pink decor, the Madonna Inn harbors a darker secret, Room 609, which was reportedly built on the site of a horrific murder and has become one of Hollywood's most notorious paranormal hotspots. Though not a celebrity residence in the traditional sense, this room has attracted numerous stars over the decades, many seeking the thrill of its haunted reputation, only to flee in the middle of the night after experiencing its phenomena firsthand. According to local legend, a woman was brutally murdered on the property long before the inn was built, and her spirit remains attached to the location. Guests staying in room 609 consistently report the same disturbing experiences. The sensation of being watched while they sleep, the bathroom lights turning on and off by themselves, and the feeling of invisible hands touching their faces or hair. What seems like a kitschy, fun hotel harbors something much darker, revealed a Hollywood actress who stayed in the room in the 1990s but requested anonymity. I woke up around 3 a.m. feeling like someone was sitting on the edge of the bed. When I opened my eyes, I saw a woman standing by the window, just staring at me. She wasn't threatening, she seemed sad. But when I turned on the light, no one was there, and the room was freezing cold despite the heater running. Hotel staff have collected hundreds of similar accounts over the decades, with guests reporting the same apparition. A woman in a white nightgown with long dark hair, typically seen near the window or bathroom door. Electronic disturbances are common, with guests reporting that their phones lose charge overnight or alarm clocks reset themselves to 3 a.m., allegedly the time of the original murder. Perhaps most disturbing are the reports of guests waking to find the phrase, "Help me," written in the steam on the bathroom mirror, even when no one has showered. Hotel cleaning staff have reported that room 609 is noticeably colder than surrounding rooms, and that personal items left by guests are often rearranged overnight. We've had Hollywood celebrities specifically request that room for the thrill, only to check out in the middle of the night, confided a former hotel manager. One well-known actor, I can't name names, arrived with his entourage joking about ghosts, only to leave 3 hours later, pale and refusing to discuss what he'd seen or heard in there. The hotel now discreetly warns guests booking room 609 about its reputation, though they frame it as an enhanced experience rather than explicitly confirming the haunting. Despite, or perhaps because of, its notorious status, the room remains one of the most requested at the inn, particularly around Halloween. 15. The Cecil Hotel, 640 South Main Street, Los Angeles. While not a mansion in the traditional sense, No discussion of haunted Hollywood residences would be complete without mentioning the Cecil Hotel, a location so steeped in tragedy and mystery that it has become the ultimate dark tourism destination for celebrities fascinated by the macabre. Built in the 1920s as a luxury hotel, the Cecil gradually declined as the surrounding area became Los Angeles' notorious Skid Row. Over the decades, it has been the site of multiple murders and mysterious deaths, including being the residence of serial killers Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, and Jack Unterweger. Most recently, the hotel gained international notoriety with the bizarre 2013 disappearance and death of Elisa Lam, whose body was found in one of the hotel's rooftop water tanks after guests complained about strange tasting water. Security footage showing Lam's erratic behavior in the hotel elevator before her disappearance became an internet sensation, with many believing it showed evidence of paranormal influence. The hotel doesn't just have a ghost, it has dozens, claimed a paranormal investigator who conducted research in the building. We've recorded EVPs throughout the structure, captured unexplainable shadow figures on film, and documented temperature anomalies that defy natural explanation. Guests who have stayed at the Cecil, later rebranded as Stay on Main in an attempt to distance itself from its dark history, consistently report similar phenomena, feeling invisible hands touching them while they sleep, hearing whispers and crying from empty rooms, and seeing apparitions in hallways that vanish when approached. Several Hollywood celebrities with interests in the paranormal have reportedly spent nights at the Cecil as a form of extreme ghost hunting, though most do so anonymously to avoid publicity. Those who have spoken about their experiences describe overwhelming feelings of dread, inexplicable noises, and the sensation of being followed through the corridors. It feels like walking through a sponge that's soaked up decades of pain and desperation, said a film director who stayed there while researching a horror project. There's an emotional weight to the air that's hard to describe but impossible to ignore. It's like the building itself is saturated with suffering. The hotel's longest-term residents have reported the most disturbing phenomena: televisions and lights turning on at 3 a.m., the sound of body hitting concrete, echoing the hotel's numerous suicide jumpers, and glimpses of people in their rooms who vanish when acknowledged. In 2011, the hotel underwent partial renovation, but workers reported numerous unexplained incidents during construction, including tools disappearing, the sensation of being pushed while on ladders, and the overwhelming smell of decay in rooms that had been completely gutted and cleaned. Though not currently operating as a hotel, the Cecil remains a powerful symbol of Los Angeles' dark side, a building that seems to have absorbed the energy of every tragedy it has witnessed, creating what many consider to be the most densely haunted location in Hollywood.